digging for facts. The water in beyond 100 days with me.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. I have the Honorable Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Mr. Bosun Tijani, joining me live from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It's good to have you on the program, and thank you for your time. Honorable Minister, if you can hear me, let's start the conversation around the sustainability of Nigeria's telecommunication industry. There's been a lot of issues around tariff and all of that in recent times. But first, give us an overview of the issues and how this comes to you. That report from KPMG.
Thank you so much, Tolilo. I think talking sustainability, perhaps we have to start from thoroughly describing the significant role of this sector in our economy. I think fortunately as a nation, we took the decision to do full liberalization of the telecommunication sectors in 1999. And if you follow the growth in our GDP since then, it's been extremely exciting. I think the years following 1999, we probably saw about year-on-year 30% growth in our GDP. And if you look at all the decisions that were taken as at this time, you realize that it was truly that full liberalization of the sector that led to the increase or improvement in productivity across key sectors in our country. Over the years, of course, we all know that the telecommunication sector is now developed to becoming the backbone of any modern progressive economy. Just imagine today what life would be like without your phone or without access to the internet. How many businesses will be grounded if they are not connected? Even the ability to consume government services, or in some cases, the ability to access quality healthcare. You know, all these the outcomes of a very vibrant telecommunication sector. Nigeria is probably the second largest telecom sector on the African continent, if not first in some cases. We've seen a lot of investment because of government effort from the private sector over the years. In this sector, we've seen significant investment in the sector. But what we're still faced with, because of the size of our country and our population that is constantly growing, of course, is that the investment that is required to truly offer service meaningful connectivity, which means that in urban area you have somewhere up to 25 Mbps of download, and in the rural area you can at least achieve 10 Mbps, which is not the case at the minute. There's still a significant investment that needs to be done. So when we came in, following the ethos but also the mandate of Mr. President, we looked at what we needed to do as a nation, as a government, as regulator, to empower the businesses operating in this sector, but also ensure that that sector continues to grow. For those who are following, this sector employed directly about 15,000 people directly, but indirectly, when you talk about all the people servicing the sector, including those that are selling the Richard card and so many other services, this sector employs about 500,000 people. So it's extremely important that on one hand, we have to ensure that the sector continues to contribute to our growth and development as a nation. But on the other hand, we need to bear in mind that telecommunication services is now literally close to human rights, that people must have access to meaningful connectivity, and this is the only way we can grow. So as a government, we looked at what we needed to do. We realized that we can't wait for the private sector to do all the investment that is needed to truly make telecommunications to be where we want it in the country, because private sector will always only invest in locations where they can see short to medium term returns on investment. This is how private capital works, and that's not going to be sufficient for us because we can't restrict only our people to urban area. So on the other hand, government must step up and invest in infrastructure in part of the country that the private sector will not go, which is why President Tinubu and the Executive Council approved that we should invest $2 billion into building the backbone for the country to ensure that the quality of connectivity in Nigeria, regardless of where you find yourself, can be amongst the best in the world. But at the same time, we still need the private companies to continue to invest. And we know, if you look at the global inflation over the years, there's never been an increase in this sector in terms of tariff for many, many years. But if you look at the inflation, cost of doing business, which is not unique to Nigeria, is something that is common. It's becoming, as we know, a bit difficult for these companies to truly continue to operate sustainably, but also in a manner that they continue to invest. And we have to bear in mind, telecommunication is not one of those areas where once you've invested, you can leave the equipment and they will continue to work. You have to constantly be maintaining them, bringing in new equipment. So we understand why these companies are agitating for increase in tariff, but because we also understand that our people must be catered for, we had to look for a scientific way of determining what sort of increase we should be talking about. But also when we're talking sustainability, that sustainability is not just only about increase in tariff, but every other thing that government can do to, for instance, help reduce the cost of doing business for a lot of these companies, which you can also see that President Tinubu also declared all telecommunications infrastructure as critical national infrastructure, implying that those who vandalize this equipment, they will be met with the strictest form of response from the law, thereby protecting this equipment, ensuring that we can have access to it. But at the same time, they are agitating for 100% increase in tariff. We don't think the government of today will allow for 100% increase in tariff. That's not what we're going to do. But we understand the need to increase the tariff so that the sector can continue to be sustainable. And over the next couple of weeks, we will hear from National Communications Commission that will issue a directive on what we consider as government to be permissible.
Interesting stuff, because I was going to ask you, considering inflation figures that we have, foreign exchange challenges, and the tariffs has been just the way it's been for some time. I was opportune to speak to one of the MDs yesterday, particularly Nine Mobile, and he was harping on that fact, that the impact on the industry. But now let's look at what this also even means for customers and users of this service. What sort of services should they be expecting, even if at the end of the day there's this nod from the NCC? What should they expect positively?
No, absolutely. And I think if you follow the work of the NCC over the years, the directive from the government, which NCC has been implementing effectively, is that we must improve on the quality of experience, right? We used to call it quality of service, but this thing is much more than just the service that people consume. What are the opportunities that are there for you to be able to lodge complaints? How do we ensure that consumers can actually have a better understanding of the services that they pay for? Because we've seen the somewhat ambiguous and complicated description of the packages that people buy sometimes. And because of this, people are actually confused as to what are we paying, what am I paying for, and what should I be expecting to get. So NCC has now developed a more transparent pattern and approach for measuring the quality of experience that people get. But also, many people don't understand that for telecommunications companies, whilst you may know the big MNOs who are the front facing, which is MTN, Airtel, Glo, Nine Mobile, and the likes, a lot of people don't understand that there are so many other companies that are involved in the process of providing these services for you. Whether they're the companies that are running the towers that are responsible for the transmission of the services, or those who just are responsible for maintaining so many infrastructure along the line. NCC is also now ensuring that all those companies are able and they follow set procedures for providing the right services to our people. The mandate of this government is very clear, that for us, telecommunications is no longer just a random service that people consume. It is an essential service. It can be something that denies you access to financial services because you want to access your bank account on your phone. You want to be able to do transaction. It has a lot to say there. It's the backbone for providing healthcare for so many people. It's the backbone for communications for businesses. So for us, the quality of that service is extremely important. And that's why I mentioned earlier, we are a very responsible government. We're not just leaving this to private companies, because the private sector's investment is not going to accelerate us fast enough to where we want to be to ensure that we have the best quality across the entire country, regardless of where you find yourself.
Now, this again, you talked about the percentage that government would not be looking at 100%, and some will say it's about 40–50%. But in your thoughts, what do you think would be appropriate for sustainability of that industry? Because the effect on the economy, like you've identified, it's enormous.
I can say on one hand I have a technology background, but also an economics background as well.
Okay.
But at the same time, I think I'll be deceiving you if I say as an individual I can sit here and give you the percentage. This is why, and if you speak to a lot of people in this industry, the study that we've commissioned is one of the first of its kind on the African continent. People talk about these studies a lot. For us, we think this is an important issue. I think for many people, the second most important thing that they spend money on is buying airtime and credit and data, right? So it's not something that we can just haphazardly pluck a percentage and say, go ahead. So the study that has been led by KPMG and Simon Cooper is actually taking into consideration data sets from MBS, from a lot of these companies in terms of how they do business. There's a particular data set that they've used which include things like average revenue per user, which we're saying this is not just about revenue for the companies, but this is also how you determine whether these companies are profitable or not. They've taken that into consideration. They've taken into consideration the cost of doing business. They've taken into consideration inflation. They've actually done the model of what would be the implication of an increase in tariff to the different category of people within our country. That's what they've done. And this is what's going to inform the percentage that we will choose. I don't want to jump ahead of the interpretation of this report. I received the interim report yesterday. I met with KPMG and Simon Cooper. And this morning we've had a breakfast meeting with the CEOs of all the mobile network operators in Nigeria. NCC has now been given the mandate based on the interim report to come up with a proposition on what percentage we believe is acceptable that will not inflict unbearable pain on Nigerians.
I like that fact. You talked about the federal government supporting, to avoid vandalism and all of that, which is very, very important for the growth of the sector. But what other bottlenecks do you think government will be looking at as we move on in 2025 that would help to make us experience the needed growth in Nigeria's telecommunications sector across the board?
Absolutely, there are a number of them. I think first one is the towers in themselves. How do we manage and power them? These power towers have to be powered. And they consume a lot of diesel because they have to use generator to power them. Now, as a sector, we are working on a very strong approach to the use of alternative and cleaner form of energy, which we think in the short to medium term that can reduce the cost of powering these towers, but also can be a lot cleaner. But the question is also, can we domesticate some element of that? For instance, if there are batteries that are being used in the process, we know our president, through the Ministry of Mineral Resources, has been pushing the exploration of our lithium and the production of batteries locally. Can this sector become the local off-takers of batteries that are produced in Nigeria, which the sector requires a lot of that. If we're able to do that, not only are we going to reduce the cost of powering towers, but the sector can also contribute to helping to start a new industry in Nigeria, which obviously will create more jobs, more people with disposable income that will also end up consuming from the sector. But beyond that as well, this year you will hear from the Ministry and NCC a lot of effort being put into affordable devices. Our country is significant in terms of size of market, over 230 million people. We're adding 5 million new people every year. There's no real need for us to be importing mobile telephones at the level that we're importing it. So we're looking at incentives to encourage local manufacturing of mobile phones. And probably at some point, there's no reason why we can't insist that even when mobile phones are being imported into Nigeria, that the batteries in them should be manufactured locally. Again, reducing the cost, helping to improve opportunities for local content, local manufacturing, and thereby helping to boost the economy to get us to where the president would like us to be, which is a $1 trillion economy in just a few years' time. We believe that this sector can be a major contributor to that. But beyond that as well, some of the things that we've discussed is also local content. We need to see a stronger relationship between the startup ecosystem and the telecommunication sectors. We would like to see more entrepreneurs building digital solutions locally, good digital solutions locally that our people can use, thereby improving other sectors and making a lot more sectors to be productive. And finally, one of the other things that we discuss, among so many things, there are conversations around regulations and things we need to do this year. But also finally is digital literacy. We are working together to leverage the network of the MNOs to be able to reach a lot of Nigerians. We want more of our people to be digitally literate. And I'm not talking about digital skills. We're already working on digital skills. That's a separate program. Digital literacy is simply saying the average Nigerian should have a good understanding of how to use digital tools for whether they're using it for their businesses as utility or for every daily transactions. We believe that if we do this, we're also going to be strengthening the sustainability of the sector. And we're extremely excited. I think there's an agreement between us on the government side, but also with the private players, that this government is a pro-business government. Literally everything that the sector is asked us to do, we've looked for a strong way to balance the protection of our people, but also ensuring that these businesses can thrive. And I think 2025 is going to be an extremely exciting year for a sector that is already doing well. Remember that the inflow into the sector, the foreign direct investment in 2024, in Q1 2024, was bigger than the entire inflow in 2023. In 2024, we had about $119 million compared to $22 million that came in Q1 2023. So the total in Q1 2024 was more than the entire inflow in 2023. So this is a sector that is on the rise, and as this sector is rising, responding to all the reforms of Mr. President is giving us the confidence that we're going to see more inflow, which means this sector will continue to create jobs, but also prosperity that can lead to shared opportunities for all Nigerians.
You're taking that from, because I wanted us to wrap up for the outlook for 2025, and you've already started itemizing some of that. But I'll still like, from your point of view, to tell us what more we should expect, because this growth that you just identified, the contribution, it's huge. Looking at that in a quarter compared to what we had before. So what more should Nigerians expect, even from the ministry, as we move on in 2025, Honorable Minister?
No, absolutely. I think we're extremely fortunate. I'm personally fortunate to serve under President Tinubu because of his approach to the economy, the work that the CME, the coordinating minister of the economy, is also doing. I think all the painful experiences that most of us have had as Nigerians in 2024, they were part of the process for laying a strong foundation. And what I'm expecting, particularly from our ministry, is that the average Nigerian will start to feel serious and significant improvement in the quality of service that they consume. But beyond that, that this sector will start to contribute significantly. We're expecting to see more jobs created. When we talk about laying 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic network, Nigeria is going to need annually about 4,000 to 5,000 people working on that. And the goal is that whilst we lay this fiber across Nigeria, which we're hoping to start this year, by Q3 this year, we should start that project by the grace of God. We're hoping that it will not only take Nigeria to the point where we are now more connected, that Nigeria can also become a leader within the digital economy space across the African continent, because there will be more African countries that will now start to invest in connectivity. And we want Nigerian companies to be at the forefront of providing these services across the region. So we're very optimistic. The number of opportunities that we've had, for instance, for the first time, the European Union is committing close to 50 million euros to the digital economy in Nigeria. This is almost even surpassing the budget that we have at the ministry. Because they see the plan of this government, they see the plans that we've put out there, and they're really excited about it. We are also this year setting up a trade desk, which is a dedicated desk to ensure that government can handhold and support Nigerian local technology companies and help them to export abroad. On this Friday, we'll be doing our first trade mission to the U.S. On Friday. We'll be in D.C., and a couple of announcements will be made there where the U.S. government is also supporting the digital economy sector. We'll be making the same sort of trip to Brazil. Our plan for the startup house in San Francisco is going to be fully realized this year, so we'll start to use that building that we've also gotten the approval of the Executive Council to drive. And beyond that as well, in a couple of weeks, you will see us release practically the guidelines through which technology can be used to improve government services, which will be a guideline that we expect all the different MDAs to support. Also, bear in mind, many people are not aware of this, the Universal Service Provision Fund, which Ham is chairman and is part of NCC, is also been preparing a lot of projects, including computer labs in schools, that you start to see us release and launch over this year. So this is the year that people can start to see concrete benefit and outcomes from all the preparations that we've done in the last 16 months. And I'm extremely optimistic that not only will this sector continue to grow. Remember, in our strategic blueprint, this is a sector that is currently contributing between 16 to 18% to our GDP. Our plan is that by the end of the first term of the president, we would like to take this to up to 21%. So we're really, really pushing hard to ensure that this sector can contribute to taking us where the president and our people would like Nigeria to be.
Honorable Minister, Federal Minister, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Mr. Bosun Tijani, I must thank you so much for your time on the program. And we hope to have you in few months to a bit of evaluation, looking at the fallout of some of these policies instituted and seeing how well it's impacting Nigerians. That will be very important. I will hope to have your commitment that will have you in then to speak around it.
Absolutely. You have my commitment, Tolulope. Thank you so much.
All right, then. Do enjoy the rest of your day, and apologies for the delay again.
You too.
Thank you. Well, we'll move to speak to our next guest, Adelanke Dayo Adekpoju. She is a gas and renewable energy specialist with Major Energies Marketers Association of Nigeria. She's already in the studio. Thank you so much, Adelanke, for your patience. It is good to have you live in our Eco Atlantic.